Today, we're going to tell you the most common mistakes marketers make when dealing with data and reporting. Hi, my name is Mustafa. I'm the founder of No Good. At No Good, we work with a lot of ambitious marketers that are always eager to learn one of the most important skills in marketing to be really successful. Guess what it is? Data. As growth marketers, a huge part of our job is data and reporting. The gut feeling marketing era is way gone. Sampling bias is when you draw a conclusion from a set of data that is not representative of the population you're trying to understand. For example, you might run a test campaign on Facebook or LinkedIn and assume that your audience is a certain age group based on the traffic that you draw to that test. But if you were to run the same campaign on Snapchat, your traffic will be certainly much younger. When running your campaigns and coming to conclusions, always be wary of platforms or dataset bias. The second mistake to avoid is assuming you understand the meaning of a metric. Let's be honest here, marketers use a lot of jargon. Even if you've been in the game for a while, metrics can be oddly labeled or have different meanings in different contexts. It's easy to assume you understand the data where you really don't. Bounce rate is a good example of this. When we recently asked a group of marketers, they agreed that bounce rate is just users leaving the site too quickly. This is actually false. Bounce rate is a percentage of visitors who navigate away from a site after reviewing only one page. And that means a high bounce rate isn't always a bad thing. For example, you can expect your bounce rate to be high on a site with just a few pages. On a single page site, we'll get a 100% bounce rate. The third mistake to avoid is a classic error, false causality. This is an easy one to fall for because different marketing strategies can affect each other. For example, you may have launched a Facebook campaign, then seen an uptick in organic traffic. Sure, the two may be correlated, but just because two events seem related, one doesn't necessarily cause the other. Keep the two separate while digging into your data and conducting your analysis, and remember the golden rule. Correlation does not equal causation. The fourth mistake to avoid is losing sight of your Northern Star. Your Northern Star metric should be the one metric that matters for your growth. That means any other metric that you keep in track of should tie back to your Northern Star. Be careful not to get bogged down in a sea of vanity metrics that don't contribute to your primary growth goal. Stick to your key metric and only focus on the indicators that directly influence it. The fifth deadly mistake to avoid is unequal comparison. Unequal comparison is when you try to compare two data sets of unequal weight. A common example of this is comparing two reports from two different time periods. They both may be month over month, but if they fail to acknowledge seasonality or the weekend effect, they are likely unequal. We're comparing two data sets or more, always make sure they are standardized and equal as much as possible before you draw any conclusion. The sixth deadly mistake to avoid is data dredging. Let's say you've got a great data set and you've successfully tested your hypothesis. Don't make the mistake of testing multiple new hypotheses against the same data set. Any newer correlations you make will likely be the result of chance rather than a meaningful indicator. Avoid data dredging by using a fresh set of data against new hypotheses. The seventh and last data mistakes marketers should avoid is missing statistical significance. That means drawing conclusions too early without enough data. This mistake is common when running conversion A/B test, where the outcome might seem clear at first. But don't rush to a conclusion too early. Make sure that you have high probability and true statistical significance before you choose the winning variant. I personally recommend a minimum of 96% probability and at least 50 conversions per variant. These were the 7th data mistake you should avoid to make sure your reporting is solid. To recap, make sure you avoid sampling bias and don't assume you know the meaning of a metric. Don't equate correlation with causation and keep an eye on your Northern Star metric. Don't waste your time tracking metrics that don't directly tie back to your one metric that matter. Remember not to compare two unequal data sets and always keep your data fresh to avoid data dredging. And finally, before you've arrived at an outcome, make sure you back up your findings with real statistical significance. With all this in mind, your data-driven campaign will be so much more reliable and you will be rewarded with growth. Thank you for tuning in today and see you soon.